If I'm going to put in all this time and effort for a product, I want to be so proud of it. I want to wear it myself. I want to be excited to share it with others.
Welcome to Make Good Fashion, the podcast that's all about starting, launching, and growing impactful fashion brands. I'm your host, Jasmine Rennie. Hey friends, welcome back to the Make Good Fashion podcast. I cannot believe this, but this is the final episode of the first season, and I am just so excited and so proud that I was able to get through a whole first season of this podcast. It's been so much fun connecting with the guests that have been on the podcast and just talking about this business that I love so much, that is the fashion business, and I hope that you guys have enjoyed it so far. If this is your first time listening to the podcast, make sure to go back and listen to all the episodes that came before. There have been some incredible guests and some incredible content. But I'm just so excited for everything that's to come and everything that's been done so far. And I hope you guys have been enjoying it too. So make sure that you email us or write in the reviews things that you want to hear in season 2. If you have some ideas for guests, you can email those too and just let me know who you'd love to hear on the podcast. And you can send those to your friends at makegoodfashion.com, or again, just leave it in a review. I appreciate you guys so much for just tuning in every week and just supporting the podcast. And I'm super, super grateful for your support. So in the new season, there's going to be some amazing things to come. So you guys make sure that you are subscribed to the podcast so that you will never miss when we drop a new episodes. And the new episodes, season 2, is going to be dropping in the new year, in January. So you want to stay tuned for that. So in today's episode, I am interviewing Catherine Huss, founder of Siena Co. And Siena Co is a sustainable swimwear line, and they have just incredible pieces. So gorgeous. And they really focus on creating pieces that make women feel confident in the things that they wear. Catherine has a background in technical design and just has a true love for fit and construction. And I love that so much because I know she puts her heart and soul into the product. This conversation is just a raw and candid conversation about the journey and the challenges of a startup entrepreneur. So Catherine and I talk about the challenges that come with funding your brand and sourcing and just staying true to the integrity of who you are as a brand. And so I think you guys are really going to love this episode. And I love that we're ending off with this conversation because I think it's so needed just to have that transparent dialogue. So I hope you guys love the podcast. Again, thank you so much for your support. Make sure to leave a review, send us some love, and get caught up on all the episodes. And we will be back in the new year, you guys. I love you guys so much. Now let's get into the episode. Hi, Catherine. Thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Of course. I'm so excited to learn more about what you're doing at Siena Co. But first, I want to kind of get into your background and hear how you started and all of that good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I went to a big public high school and we got to take a lot of elective courses. And I took 6 sewing classes in high school and the time just flew. And I just thought, man, if I need to do something for the rest of my life, this, I definitely wanted to be it. I got to then study apparel design in college, and there was really great. I got to learn a lot about the industry and construction techniques of garments. But I think the biggest thing I learned in my schooling was the social injustices that happen in the apparel industry. And that has really informed just totally how I look at the apparel industry, both as a consumer, but also, trying to make a brand and manufacture that way. So I got to work in the industry for a while, and then COVID happened, and I just thought, this is the most free time I'm ever going to have. I have no more excuses. I need to, start something on my own. And so I decided to design swimwear with Siena Company. And it just felt like that was the category that I haven't been able to find a swimsuit that has everything I wanted. So I just thought, okay, I guess if I can't find it, I need to make it. So that was the inception of Siena Company.
That's amazing. I think that's the best way to come up with a brand is what is missing from the market.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about starting the brand. How did you find your first manufacturer? How'd you go about that?
So I found a pattern maker through a LinkedIn group.
Oh,
for like
wow.
pattern makers. And that's actually been the hardest thing to find is pattern makers because I think there definitely are freelance pattern makers, but a lot are working full time for other brands. And I just think our society is losing this skill that is so necessary. And it really is a skill. Like if you have a bad pattern maker, your clothing is going to show and it's not going to fit well. It's not going to look good. In my first job out of college, my supervisor helped teach me a lot about pattern making. So, and she was so talented. Well, to this day, she's like been the best mentor. But so I do have an eye for pattern making, but I don't have as much experience with like all the CAD program and everything. Anyway, so I found a pattern maker on LinkedIn and then she knew the manufacturer that I first started with there in New York City. And the first sample I got was beautiful. Like I couldn't have asked for more. And I went out there to meet them and I could tell the guy who ran the place was kind of like, I don't have time for you. You're just a new startup. I'm very established. I just want to keep working with the bigger brands that I have. He didn't say those words, but that was the vibe I was getting. And then sure enough, after I left him, he just ended up just ghosting me, just totally never responded.
Oh my gosh.
And that was hard because, yeah, that was like a lead I had and he did good work. But I just thought if he doesn't communicate with me, I can't work with him. I can't trust him. So then the next thing I did was I went to another clothing company I really admire and they posted on their website all the manufacturers they work with. So I went down the line and I called every single one. And the manufacturer I now work with was the only one who picked up the phone.
Wow.
And it's been so great. He's been so great. They're in LA, so it's much closer to me, so I can drive there whenever I need to. He calls and checks on me like, hey, I haven't heard from you for a while. How are you doing? What's the next step? Just a total 180 from that first manufacturer.
Yeah.
So that's been working out really well.
That's wonderful. And I love your grit that you would just dig that deep to find your manufacturer. And a lot of times
Yeah.
that's what you have to do because this industry is such
Yes.
an insider's industry.
Yes.
A lot of people don't want to share information. And
Mhm.
so it can be really hard. And
Yeah.
especially with smaller brands, a lot of these manufacturers don't want to work with smaller brands because you're not
Yes.
bringing in large quantities.
Exactly.
You probably don't really know what you're doing all that much as a
Yeah.
startup. And so,
Right.
they don't really give you the time of day, but that's why
Exactly.
building relationships is so
Mhm.
important in this industry. Because once you
Yes.
find someone that's really good, they can lead you to another person, another,
Yes.
and another. So you want to really nurture those relationships and,
Yes.
yeah, just build that way.
Yeah, and I think they really like to refer amongst each other. Like I
Yeah.
found once you ask one supplier or manufacturer, "Hey, do you know anyone about this?" Yeah, they have like 3 and they're really happy to refer you.
Yeah.
And then when you go to them, they're happy to refer you. So, yeah, it is almost like you just need to get one foot in the door and then just be bold to ask. Yeah.
Yeah. And they all want to give each other business. So
Yes.
it's really helpful to do it in that way. So,
Yep.
yeah, I always encourage new designers, like, don't get discouraged. You just
Yes.
gotta keep going until you find the right person.
Yes.
And the other
Mhm.
thing is that the manufacturers are, they have been around for quite a long time. And a
Mhm.
lot of them don't really understand technology. So they don't have the
Yes.
means to like build a website. So you're not going
Yep.
to be able to just Google and find one really easily.
Yep.
Usually the ones that you're going to find on Google are probably like upcharging you a lot.
Yes. Exactly.
So, yeah, it's good to do your due diligence and just
Mhm.
make friends in the industry, network with other brands. And for me, that was kind of hard because I'm very introverted. So I'm just like, I don't want to talk to
Mhm.
anybody. I don't want to be on
Yeah.
social media. I don't want to do this. I don't,
Yep.
but it kind of sets you back. So you kind of got to get out of your comfort zone and
Mhm.
just ask questions. Okay, so where did the concept from Sienna and Company come from? Because you have such a beautiful brand identity and the pieces are gorgeous. Like, where did that concept come from?
Yeah, thank you so much. I definitely think it kind of stemmed from I got to study abroad in Italy
Oh,
in
nice.
college, and so I spent some time in Siena, Italy. So
Wow.
it's named after Siena and then Saint Catherine of Siena. I just feel like the Italian women I encountered there basically just exude, yeah, the what I want Sienna and Company to embody, just a woman who is confident in herself and therefore she can shine. I just feel like for myself, and I do think other women experience this as well, when you think you look good, you just like, you're confident and you show up as your best self. And I guess that would be my goal for every woman is for you to just feel confident in who you are so that you can show up present and be able to kind of show your best self to everyone you're encountering, whether it's, your friends where you are, or if you have a family, just showing up as your best self for them. And so that's kind of the idea of the swimsuits that I design is how can you feel confident wearing the swimsuit so that you can basically forget about what you're wearing so that you can
Right.
focus on whatever else or whoever else you're with. Because I think that's a big thing is, when we're wearing clothing or swimsuits that where you don't feel comfortable in, you're like fidgeting and you're worrying more about, okay, what are other people thinking? How am I looking? But if you could just put something on that you feel confident in, you can forget about that and then move on to basically like more important things than what you're
Yeah.
wearing.
Yeah. And I don't think you've mentioned on here, but we spoke about it, and you were a technical designer prior to starting your business. So, how
Hmm.
has that kind of helped? And for those that don't know, can you just touch on a little bit about what a technical designer does? Because I think people hear the word technical designer and they're like, oh,
Yes.
you're a fashion designer. Like,
Yep.
you are, but in a different way that people don't really hear about.
Yep. Yeah. The way I describe it is it's very much the fit and construction side of garment making. So the biggest thing is we're in the fitting. So we're trying on the garments on a model so that you can see, okay, on a 3D woman with curves, how is this fitting? And then you're also working with the designer of, okay, the design concept. It's one thing to have something in your mind. It's one thing to have a sketch on, a 2D piece of paper, but then to bring it to life on an actual person who is going to be moving and, going to have to be feeling how the garment is fitting and feeling. It's all those aspects of the technical side, how long is the length or how high is the neck, those types of things. So it's very much the fit and construction of the garments.
Yeah. And I think that people really sleep on how important this job is. And I think
Hmm.
you have such an advantage of having a background in this because fit is so important,
Hmm.
more than you would even imagine,
Yeah.
especially in the area of sales. Because if something doesn't fit correctly,
Mhm.
you're going to get a bunch of returns, right? So
Yes.
it doesn't matter if you're making the sales, if you've made an awesome collection. If the fit is not there, it's not going to work,
Mhm.
especially when you get into the area of wholesale and you start selling to
Mm.
other retailers. It's going to be a problem if somebody orders 10,000 pieces of something and it fits horribly,
Yes.
And so I think that you have such an advantage having this
Mhm.
background and being able to have this as a key component of the things that you make.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I also another thing that's really important to me as a designer is not just, okay, it looks good and then it's like fitting, but how does it feel? Because
Mm,
I know for myself, I do not want to wear something that is not comfortable, that is like hitting in a weird place or it's like constricting too much. Like I want to be comfortable. So I think also just kind of putting yourself in the shoes of the person who's going to be wearing it. Yeah. Is this comfortable? And am I going to want to put it on or am I going to want to take it off as soon as I put it on?
yeah, I can't wait to get one of your swimsuits because I know it's going to be cozy and fit
Yay.
amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, so when did you actually launch? When did you officially start the brand?
Yeah. So I started working on it, day one, April 2020. So exactly 3 years ago.
Hmm.
And then the Kickstarter to fund the first production was August of 2021. So it took, a good year and a half for all of the development. Creating the brand, building up marketing, the for samples, photo shoot. Yeah, a year and a half. Mhm.
Okay, and for the people that don't know, what is Kickstarter?
Yeah, Kickstarter is a crowdfunding platform that helps creators raise funding for the product they're making. And the way I used it was like a pre-order model. So saying, okay, these are the swimsuits that I have to offer. You can back the project so you can give money in the arrangement that you're going to get a swimsuit back. So that worked out really well for me because I got to know exactly what sizes and styles to create before I actually made them. And then also raise the money before actually making them because so far I've just been self-funded. So that was a really great avenue for me to go that first collection.
Yeah, I love that because you're getting customer feedback as well
Mm-hmm.
as, getting funding for your business without equity being taken out.
Yep.
It's an exchange for product.
Yes.
So I feel like that's a great way to fund if
Mm-hmm.
like you're a new brand or you just starting out and you don't really have means to funding.
Yep.
Maybe you can't really get approved for a loan yet because you don't really have proof of
Mm-hmm.
concept. So that's a
Yes.
great route to go.
Yeah. It was great for me, that first collection. And then as we talked about, Jasmine, the second collection on Kickstarter, you have to reach your goal in order to get any of the funding. So the second collection that I launched on there did not reach its goal. So that's kind of where I am now is, okay, that wasn't successful. So now what is the next step to access funds to produce the next line?
Yeah. And that's a real challenge.
Yeah.
These are real problems. And I'm glad you're
Yes.
bringing this up because I feel like people don't really see in the background. We see these beautiful websites, beautiful Instagram, beautiful
Hmm.
collections, but people don't really know the challenges that
Yes.
happen within a brand. And a lot of times it's funding. Like
Uh-huh.
it's a lot of money to start a
Yes.
collection. And of
Yep.
course you can start smaller and work your way up.
Hmm.
But a lot of times there is a demand but we don't have the resources to meet that
Hmm.
demand. And so, coming off of this Kickstarter, now you're here questioning like, okay, what's the next step?
Yes.
So can I ask you, like, what have you looked into so far as funding goes and next steps to move forward?
Yeah, I guess the biggest, most, it seems like it'll be the most immediate option is a loan from a bank. But yeah, interest rates can be difficult and also the amount that you can get. I was just talking with my brother the other day. He's really helpful to bounce ideas off of. And yeah, we just talked about this idea of asking friends and family because a lot of startups do say that's kind of the first before you go into, venture capital or having people invest, the first round is kind of friends and family. But we
Hmm.
were just talking about how uncomfortable that idea is.
Oh
I
my
think
goodness.
in a couple ways, one, not wanting to ask people for anything, that, just trying to do this myself and being independent in that way. But also just, people often say, yeah, it's not good to like mix money and family because it can get awkward and
Yeah.
uncomfortable. And I think that's probably my biggest worry would be making it, yeah, uncomfortable or making people uncomfortable by asking all that kind of stuff. So those are kind of the first two things. And then of course the next thing would be investors and like you're saying, giving up equity. I don't think I'm there yet. The idea of like the pitch decks, and I also recently talked with an attorney and about the idea of, yeah, when you divide up your company with shares, then you need to bring an attorney in and, then there's all those fees and all that. So I don't think I'm there yet, but
Yeah.
I do think probably a loan, whether from family and friends or a bank, is probably the next route. What's your experience been with that?
Yeah, I have a couple thoughts. When we get into the discussion of venture capitalists and investors, it's like so overwhelming and
Yes.
so big, right? But I think there's a
Yeah.
couple of ways that, you can fundraise without going to that
Mm,
route right
mm-hmm.
away. And small business loans with low interest being one of those ways. I also always look out for grants and especially for like startup grants. There was one I just saw the other day actually, specifically for startups who have
Nice.
made less than 50,000 because a lot of times with these grants they want you to make a certain amount, right? And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
what's the point if I'm looking for money, I'm starting up, this is like impossible. You want me to have
Yes.
like this
Right.
amount right now? So, but there are some that
Yeah.
don't require you to have that much
Yeah.
revenue yet and are specifically tailored to startups. There's ones that are specifically tailored to women-owned brands and
Mhm.
that like Amber Grant. And so I always like to like look out for that. So sometimes I
Yeah,
take a day and I'll just scrape and see like what's
amazing.
out there right now
Yeah,
because it's free money. You don't have to pay it
yeah.
back. And I think the unique thing about purpose-driven businesses is that we have really strong story
Mhm.
And with story, you can really evoke emotion in people and really get people wanting to be a part of this great thing,
Mhm.
right? And so I would really utilize that too, even
Yeah.
if you are going the route of like fundraising from family and you present it to them in a way of like, not like, hey, I need your money because I need to
Right.
fund my swimwear line.
Right.
Like, that doesn't sound too interesting.
Yes.
But if you tell a story of like, this is what this swimwear line is doing for the environment
Mhm.
and for people, and
Yep.
this is who we're serving and the
Yep.
area that these needs that have not been met. This is what we're
Mhm.
gonna do. I
Yep.
think people are more prone to like wanting to buy into it because they feel like they're a part of something.
Yeah.
So I remember when I started my brand, I like rented a pier space and I had like snacks, things that you could come and eat, and invited family and friends. And I showed like a little video on a
Mhm.
projector. And then after the video was done playing, I spoke about what I was doing and my heart
Yep.
behind the brand. And people started giving right away. You know what I mean?
Amazing.
And so I think there also has to be some type of incentive and like,
Mhm.
not just an ask, because that makes it less uncomfortable. And
Yes.
I think also when it's in a space where it's like you're sharing your heart and there's a group of people, there's this like
Mhm.
little ripple effect that happens when one person sees that one person is like giving or going,
Yep.
like, investing in something or like being a part of something, then another person's like, well, I want to too. Like you feel like you're
Yeah.
missing out on something, you know?
Yeah. What did that practically look like? Like, they handed you cash, or what did
No,
that
no, no,
look
no, no.
like?
So mine was also tied with my Indiegogo campaign, so a
Okay, I see what you're
crowdfunding
saying.
campaign. But I think
Got it.
that you can also do it yourself. So make it like your own
Yep.
crowdfunding campaign
Yep.
outside of this platform where they're going to take percentages from you and then they
Yes.
don't want to give you the money if you're not raising
Yes.
it.
Yeah.
Like maybe set up some kind of like PayPal account. So I had a computer at this
Yep.
event where people could
Mhm.
go and like give their amount. So you could
Yes.
even do like a
I see what you're saying.
PayPal or something where they can just go or
Yep.
pre-order or they can pledge right then and there so they don't go home and kind of like forget about it and they're like, oh, what was that
Mhm.
about? And give them the opportunity to do it that way. And then you take
Yep.
matters into your own hands, right?
Yep.
And you could also just like reach out to everyone that gave or wanted to give to your Kickstarter
Yep.
campaign and invite them out to something too. It can be
Yep.
small, it can be at your home, it can be at like an
Mhm.
apartment, clubhouse, or whatever.
Yep.
But at least, you're bringing them into the space and like maybe providing some food and like just sharing your heart. Because I think a lot of times it can be like scary asking for things, but more people probably want to support you than you know.
Mhm. Yeah, definitely. And then, do you have any idea of what the turnaround time for grants is? Like, once you apply,
Hmm.
when are you and you're granted it, when are you receiving those funds?
Yeah, so they're all different. All of them have different terms, and they'll tell
Mhm.
you
Okay.
contracts. Usually, with most of them, they're pretty fast. There have been, like, I've gotten a grant where they broke it up into two parts. So they give
Okay.
you, because a lot of them are tied also to like, they want to give you mentorship, right?
Nice.
And they want you to
Yeah.
be a part of this mentorship program. A lot of times they want you to finish out the program before they grant you the money.
Got
Or
it.
and then sometimes it's just like, no, we'll just give you the money. But
Mhm.
again, you have to have strong story and you have to know how to communicate
Mhm.
that as well.
Yeah.
And I had the episode before this, we were talking about brand identity and communicating that and crafting that story. Because a lot of times you can have that in your heart, but you just don't know how to like articulate it really well or like
Mhm.
make it sound really beautiful. And so,
Yep.
like for myself, I hired someone. Like I was like,
Yeah.
I wrote a rough copy. This is before AI, by the way. So just
Yeah.
wrote a rough copy and had them like make it sound amazing. And I've used that for every application, for every grant,
Wow.
for
That's awesome.
the about page and all of that. So yeah,
That's so
it
great.
varies.
Yeah. That's awesome.
We were also talking about, going into debt for your business and all of that
Mhm.
earlier. And wanted to kind of touch on that too. Cause I think there is such a like, there are some people who are just like naturally risk takers. I am
Mhm.
not.
Yes.
And so that's something that I've had to learn on my journey. And I'm curious
Mhm.
about like where you're at with that and that mindset.
Yeah, I think we're coming from the same place. I would say most of the advice I've gotten in the 3 years I've been doing this has been, don't go into debt. I think those people are just coming from a place of, there are other options. And probably it's for a lot of people, it's hard then to get out of debt. So
Yeah.
when you're putting yourself in that, it is a risk both to get out of it, but also that you might fail and then not be able to pay it back. So I think that's kind of where they're coming from. But I would say the most advice I've gotten is not to do that. However, I do feel like that is kind of where I am now, is if I want to see this continue, that does sort of seem like the next option for me. And I like the idea of calculated risks. I want to sit down and really look at all the numbers and, okay, how long do I have to pay this back? What is the likelihood of that kind of thing. So I would say yes, like a small business loan or even a personal loan. So I haven't actually acted on any of these, but these are just kind of things I'm thinking about for the next step to fund my next collection.
Yeah. So I'll give you my thoughts on that too.
Yes.
So yeah, I come from this mindset of like debt is evil. Personally, I, try to be debt free as much as
Mhm.
possible.
Yep.
But I had a little bit of a mindset shift because I think being debt free personal with your personal finances
Yep.
is great. Like
Yeah.
it's a great thing to aspire to. And I try to do that myself.
Mhm.
However, with a business, like you're saying, like sometimes you're going to need extra money. And I think that, like you said, calculated risk, right? Like,
Mhm.
I think if you have proof of concept and you really believe in your product and it
Yeah.
can go far, because you
Mhm.
shouldn't just like go into a bunch of debt for something that you don't know is going to work. Like you
Right.
need to prove that people actually want this, that there's a need
Yep.
for it, that there's a space for it in the market
Mhm.
before you step out on that. So yeah, I'll share a little story. I had a little
Yeah.
experience with this. So yeah, I was always like, I'm just going to bootstrap this thing and
Mhm.
grow it slow
Yep.
and, you know, we'll see that where that takes me. So I came up at this point in my business, right? And I got a wholesale order that was like six figures, right?
Wow.
And it was like 1,000 pieces, I think.
Mhm.
And I'm like, I'm taking this, right? Like a lot of people will try, like if they can't fulfill the orders, maybe they'll try to talk them down, like let's bring the quantities down
Yep.
or find some way around it. But I'm like, I'm not giving this up. Like I've worked so
Yeah.
hard for this.
Yes.
I'm taking this deal, right? No idea how I'm gonna finance it, but we'll figure it out. So
Wow.
did the same thing, had a couple of zero interest credit cards, but mind you, I'm scrapping to figure how I'm going to do this out because this
Yep.
needs to ship out within the next 6 months, right? And
Wow.
so
Yep.
I'm just like, the heck am I going to do? So I had a couple
Mhm.
of credit cards. The thing though, in the fashion industry, as you may know, a lot of these manufacturers don't take credit cards. So you need a
Yes.
lot of cash on hand too.
Yep.
So I started applying for loans, all kind of things. And I had great credit personally. The business credit, like I didn't really have a credit card up until then.
Yeah.
So there wasn't really anything there. But I had a PO. And so I thought, like, I'm gonna go to the bank, I'm
Mhm.
gonna show them this PO. It's
Yes.
a hard PO
Yes.
for this many quantities and
Yep.
what I've made up until this point and all this stuff. And it seemed like everything was gonna go great. First bank loan got denied. Yeah, they denied me, and I'm like, why? No
Yeah.
sufficient reason. And then I applied for another loan through the SBA, right?
Yep.
And I got approved for the loan. So excited. I'm
Amazing.
like, perfect. And so I'm like trying to hurry up and process this loan because I'm like, dude, I need this money
Mhm.
as soon as possible because I got to pay
Yeah.
my manufacturer. And at this point, I'm like, I moved to another manufacturer that the costs were higher because they were doing a
Mhm.
full service production.
Yep.
And I just needed that for the capacity I was doing. And so
Yep.
doing the loan stuff turns out first blow was that they don't give you the money right away. And I
Mhm.
needed the money right away. They said after it was approved, it would take like 2 months or so before I would get the
What?
money. Yep.
Okay, that's very
And
good to know.
then, yeah.
Oh.
And then I don't know if it works like that for all of them, but this
Yeah.
specific loan was like this. And then as they're doing the closing process of this loan, because there's so many steps, I did not
Yeah.
know any of this. And I had to figure it
Yeah.
all out when I had to pay for all of this production, right?
Mhm.
So they're getting to the closing process and they're like, oh, we don't have records. We're trying to pull records of your taxes or something like that. and we can't find that. Right? I'm like, what? I filed. I don't
Right.
understand. And it turns out like something happened where it didn't go through, and they wouldn't be able to give me the loan until those documents populated
What?
to the IRS. Yeah. And I ran to the IRS office
Yeah.
and tried to resolve it and got it resolved. But she's like, oh, the IRS is so backed up, it probably won't even get there until next year.
Oh my
And
gosh.
so it was just roadblock after roadblock after
Yeah.
roadblock. And I ended up getting a loan from family.
Yeah.
So I did take that route for that. But
Yep.
again, when you have a hard PO, it's a little bit easier because you're like,
Yeah.
hey, I'm getting all this money. I'll pay you back.
Yep.
And there was a check that was supposed to come through from another retailer, and it was late, but it came in right in time.
Oh my gosh.
And I was just flying by the seat of my pants. I was so
Yeah.
stressed out. But all
Wow.
that to say is like, you don't want to wait until the moment when you get that huge order
Yeah.
to go get the money. You want to make
Mm.
sure that you have that stuff on hand
You're
so
ready,
that
yeah.
you're ready. And when it's
Mhm.
time to, finance something like this, you have that ready and available. You don't have to
Mhm.
be like me. Like, what if I didn't have family willing to, make that investment or willing
Yep.
to lend me the money,
Yeah.
And so it all worked out in the end. But I always remember that story because I'm like, I do not want to end up in that predicament again.
Yes. Yeah.
But I also, again, calculated risk. I wouldn't want to take out a bunch of money that I don't need right now. Right.
Yes. Yeah.
And so that taught me so much and really changed my
Mhm.
mindset about like finances within business, and that,
Yep.
yeah, sometimes it's okay to borrow as long, again, as you have proof of concept and you really believe in what you're doing and you're going to persevere until this thing is successful.
Yep. Do you know the payment terms on like that big PO and any other POs? Like, do they pay you anything up front, or how does that work?
Yeah. So when you're dealing with wholesale, you can kind of negotiate your terms, usually with larger retailers. So we're talking department stores and really big retailers.
Yep.
They probably are not going to nudge, especially with newer brands. If it's like a
Mhm.
legacy brand that's been around for a while and they've been caring for a while and they have proof of sales,
Yep.
like they may, but usually doesn't work. But for, just regular wholesale, you can always negotiate that. So
Mhm.
usually what they will say is like, either we'll give you 100% of the payment after everything ships, or they'll
Mhm.
try to say like net 30, so we'll pay you
Yep.
30 days after, net 60 or whatever. Some people
Yep.
even do net 90, which is insane to me. I would
Crazy.
say no to that.
Yeah.
But as a brand, I think that you like have to really fight and try your hardest to get a deposit. And so
Mhm.
usually with my retailers that I'm able to, I will say, we need a 30% deposit, 70% for
Nice.
shipment,
Yep.
because that will also give you the leverage to use that money to produce your collection, and then you
Absolutely.
may not even need to borrow.
Yep.
So,
Exactly.
but again, when you're working with larger retailers, they know that they have the power and they
Yep.
know that they don't need to do that and you'll still work with them. So they're like,
Mhm.
nope, like,
Yep.
we know you're going to still accept this PO. So,
Yeah.
but there are ways that you can just check and make sure that they, how their payment is. Like,
Mhm.
for example, even just talking to other designers who have worked with these stores before, they will tell you, like, I've had designers tell me, like, they don't pay. Like, they don't pay on
Mm.
time. It took me months or, several
Gosh,
months to get my payment, which is so
what a
unfair,
nightmare.
especially,
Yeah.
yeah, to emerging designers, because we need that money and you produce all this
Yeah.
stuff, you know what I mean?
Right.
And it's just very unfortunate. So I would always do my due diligence and not be just so impressed with the
Yes.
name of a retail store, like, oh, I
Yes.
got this huge retailer and it looks
Mhm.
great.
Yep.
But there's a lot of like catch-22s with these things
Mm.
where you actually need to weigh out the cost. Like, is
Yep.
it worth it? Yeah,
Mhm.
sometimes it's like, well, it's free PR because I'm in the store and
Mhm.
it looks good for my brand.
Yep.
But is it gonna like, make you bankrupt?
Right.
So you have to
Exactly.
do your due diligence. Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you thought about if you want to stay direct to consumer or if you are looking to get into the wholesale space?
Yeah. To be honest, up until now, I haven't been interested in wholesale because I think you do almost lose that ability to share your story. However, it does feel like at the crossroads I am, it's not going to be a sustainable business model to just stay direct to, well, okay, let me go back. I don't think it's, in order to get costs down, I think I need to increase quantities. And I think going the wholesale route will help increase quantities. So I do think that is something I should pursue. But I mean, that's just a whole other beast in itself. I mean, you're just, even the couple of things you've mentioned so far of, okay, you get this PO and then you have to either, yeah, you have to produce that. And then just this idea of having multiple production runs. I haven't done that yet. I've only, just done one giant production run, which is so nice because it's just all at once. But the idea of, yeah, getting different POs and then having different production runs and sales, and that is just a whole other beast that I haven't thought of, but it does feel like in order to get costs down, increasing quantities, that would be helpful.
Yeah, yeah. I find that a lot of purpose-driven brands want to stay direct to consumer because of the reasons that you just explained, to keep the brand integrity, to tell that story, and even to
Yes.
keep costs down, because when you're working with wholesale, you have to, create that margin.
You're
You're
right.
still making a profit, and that the retailers are able to mark up as well.
Right. Mhm.
But I've also seen it done where, people start off with wholesale to get the name out there, to get orders going, and
Mhm.
then they draw it back in and then
Okay.
go direct to consumer because they have this
Interesting.
following, this base. And then some people just stay direct to consumer, but that also comes with like, okay, you really have to advertise, you really have to
Right.
grow your following, you have to get people, you know, get a
Brand loyalty.
presence and brand
Mhm.
loyalty and all of that. So
Yep.
I think there's work on both ends.
Mm.
I think the beauty with direct to consumer is like you are in control.
Mm.
Wholesale is just, it can be unpredictable. One
Yep.
season they could buy, the next season they may not buy. It
Yep.
may not sell through. Like there's just all these things to consider. So
Mhm.
direct to consumer will just stay here for right now
Yes, exactly.
and not get ahead of
Yeah,
ourselves.
exactly.
But yeah, something to think about.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. So, has there been any other challenges that you've kind of come across in the startup phase? Because you're still fairly new, and the challenges really, they never end. So,
Right.
I'm just curious for where you're at right now, almost 3 years
Mhm.
in. Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, I think the biggest ones definitely have been the funding and then knowing which or how many of each unit to produce, that kind of thing. But the other thing that comes to mind is sourcing materials, fabric and materials. So I first started with this fabric that's made in Long Beach, California, and it is like the greatest swimwear fabric I've ever felt and seen. It's
Hmm.
just like so nice. And it is the first fabric that I started using is made of partially post-consumer waste. So that was really great. People were really excited about that. The idea that it's made from, recycling materials, but it doesn't feel like it. It feels so amazing. Well, where this mill in Long Beach, California gets the yarn made out of recycled materials, it was taking so long to get it in. I think it took like 4 to 6 months just for that yarn to come in. And then when I just touched base with them recently, they're saying they're having quality control issues with that as well, which is pushing the date out even longer. So I like that I found that fabric because it had some recycled material, but also felt amazing. I mean, yeah, like I said, some of the highest quality fabric I've found. But I feel like other swimwear fabrics that are made from recycled materials, they feel like it. They feel like this, yep, came from plastic bottles
Yeah, I feel like
and
I'm
turned into
wearing
a fabric.
plastic.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm just not about that.
Yeah.
If I'm going to put in all this time and effort for a product, I want to be so proud of it. I want to wear it myself. I want to be excited to share it with others. So it like pains me the idea of having to use a fabric that I don't love. So I actually did decide when I was marketing my second collection to go to just a fully new fabric, not made from any recycled materials, to maintain that feeling of, you know, really high quality and kind of buttery soft. And I got a little bit of feedback of, yeah, we don't want you to do that from my customers. It was a really difficult decision I had to make. And what's been interesting is when people are seeing the sample. So just like what you said, your party that you had for the Indiegogo with friends and family to back it, I've had a couple of those as well. And I've had the samples there out of the fabric that I don't think feels great. But people have said unsolicited, wow, we love this fabric.
Oh my goodness.
So that's okay. That might be another issue that I run into is I am a perfectionist. I want it to be perfect. Like I said, if I'm putting all this time and effort into it, I want it to be something I'm proud of and love. To be honest, a lot of people don't have the same standards I do, or like they just don't mind as much. So that's been an interesting conundrum of where is the line and how do you balance this like high standard that I have and I want to put out there, but you kind of have to compromise on some things sometimes. And then your customers, like, what do they want and what are their standards and what are they looking for? So that was kind of a two-part answer of it's been hard to find materials that I can feel proud of, how they're made, where they're made, but also the quality. And then also with those compromises, what decisions do I make and what do my customers want?
Yeah. I love your thoughtfulness because we can trust that you're going to put out an amazing product as
Yeah.
you think through all of these details, which is so
I do.
important. And I think, the main thing is like keeping that integrity of the brand. And even if they don't know the difference, like you do, and this is
Yeah.
better, like, first and foremost, being a sustainable brand that, wanting the product to be sustainable and not
Yeah.
giving that component up, even if customers like something else, like that's what you stand for and they trust you for that, whether they know it or not. Like you're the
Yep.
informant, right?
Yep.
Like you're showing them like, no, this is better,
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
helping you.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think sourcing can be a challenge for a lot of people. Have you done trade shows, like gone to sourcing trade shows at all?
I haven't recently. So most of the materials I found are, well, especially because when I started during COVID, it all had to be done via mail. And then what we were talking about, you find one supplier and then they kind of refer you. That's been really helpful in LA, the LA area. I'll find one supplier for something and then I'll say, hey, I'm looking for this. Do you have this? No, I don't. But, so-and-so down the road has that.
Yeah. I think it takes a while though, sourcing and finding the perfect materials. And, you get to a point too when you can just develop your own and the things that you want to do. Yeah. So like, what do you see for the future of Sienna and Company?
Yeah, I would love to good about swimwear first. Yeah, to just kind of get my feet under me a little bit better with that. But then the goal would absolutely be to get to branch out to other categories. Again, kind of that idea of providing women more options for clothing they can feel confident in across all categories. I love designing dresses and skirts. I feel like for casual wear, for the most part, I feel like there's a good amount of options out there for what I might be looking for myself. But it seems like if you want a little bit more elevated than just kind of your everyday casual, I feel like there's a little gap there for what I'm looking for women to be able to feel confident in it, but also confident in how it's made. So that would be my goal, is to be able to expand to other categories.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You'll definitely be able to do it. But I think it's good to like, niche down, start small, perfect, and like
exactly
grow from there.
Yeah. How about you? Do you have any immediate or long-term goals?
Retirement.
Amen.
Do podcasting.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. I think one thing that I've been really passionate about and why I started this podcast is like education. And after I left my job in the industry, I had actually started consulting before I started my business, and something I still do today. So that is kind of what this whole podcast is surrounding, is like just educating and like having these really intentional and like just vulnerable conversations about like, this is what it looks like actually to run a business, and these are the challenges that come up. And so yeah, I'm really passionate about that. And yeah, I feel like with my brand, sometimes I feel like this is a ministry for me. Especially because I just feel like, I'm a person of faith, and I know you are too, and just how much God has really used what I'm doing to speak to
Mm-hmm.
people, the encounters I've had with people, the emails I get, the
Yes.
opportunities I've been able to get to be unapologetic about my faith
Wow.
on these platforms that there's usually no space for us. And
Yes.
so I feel like it's almost like it's a ministry, it's an act of rebellion. It's
Yeah.
so many things.
Yes.
And sometimes the clothes are the last thing I think about. I'm like,
Yes.
how can I draw women closer to who God's created them to be?
Yes.
Like,
Oh,
this is
uh,
just a vessel, and I think
yes.
that's what a lot of what we're doing is. Like,
Mhm.
we're sitting here thinking, like, I want to start a fashion line, but it's like, how
Yep.
could you be used? How can you serve others
Yes.
well?
Yes.
And in the midst of that, like, God will provide and you will be sustained. If this is
Yep.
what you're called to do, like, you will be fine. But I think just focusing in on the purpose and the mission, not
Mm-hmm.
only like will give you some direction, but also I think it just gives you a sense of purpose and
Mm-hmm.
fulfillment. Like, I feel so much joy getting to do what I
Yes.
do every single
Yep.
day. No
Mm-hmm.
matter like if it's a difficult day or challenging or finances are crazy or whatever, it's just like what a privilege that I get to
Mm-hmm.
do this, that I
Yep.
like not only this, but like that this brand has afforded me the opportunity of like so many other things that I would
Mm-hmm.
never have been able to do if I
Yep.
didn't like take this leap of faith and like start it?
Yep.
So,
Exactly.
yeah.
So good. Thanks for
I
sharing all that.
feel like I've been talking so much and I'm
No,
supposed
this
to be
is amazing.
interviewing you.
No, I love it. That's what we said. We want it to be a conversation.
Yes.
We're just meeting, so getting to hear, yeah, all that you're
Yes, you
doing
guys,
is
we just met
incredible.
today, by the
Yay!
way.
Love it.
Yes. So I feel like I went off on such a tangent.
No, that's all right. It was good and necessary.
Yeah. Okay. Let me reel it back in. So after this discussion, after this call and us talking about all these things, what do you think your next steps are going to be? Like, what are you going to do moving forward with Sienna and Company? Like, what
Yeah.
does that look like?
Yeah. I think this last week after the last Kickstarter campaign was not fully funded, I think I am just getting a rejuvenation of, well, just everything you just said of it is a gift and a joy to get to do this, even if it's not where I want it to be yet. And there is a lot of work that needs to be put in. And okay, so yeah, one thing I said earlier was this idea of when you come against a road block, is it a door close or do you need to just push a little harder?
Hmm.
And so I do feel like I don't think CN& Company is over yet. So I think that, yeah, that next step would be pursue outside funding to fund this next collection to help it continue. And we'll see if any more doors close in the future.
Yeah.
I
No,
know.
I honestly don't think it's over yet, too. And God didn't tell me that. I don't know everything. I'm just feeling like it's not. And
Yeah.
yeah, if I can be any help to you, I hope that can be.
Incredible. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I am just like so tired of like this industry being so competitive and so weird.
Hmm.
I think it's nice when we can collaborate as
Yes.
entrepreneurs and designers and at
Hmm.
any level. There's always things
Yes.
that we can share with each other to
Yes.
advance what we're doing, especially when it's just rooted in so much purpose. We need more brands out there like
Hmm.
that.
Yep.
I really believe that there is no point of starting a clothing line in this day and
Hmm.
age if there is no purpose tied to it.
Yes.
Um,
Totally.
and so I love seeing more brands emerge that just have this great concept and is doing something amazing because we need more of that.
Yeah.
So, if people want to connect with you, where can they find you?
Yeah. The best way is to sign up on our email list. So you can do that by going to our website, sienna-co.com, siena-co.com, and then sign up for the email list. That's where you get all the first information, pre-orders, sales, all the good stuff.
And your social media, where can we find you?
Yes. Instagram, Sienna_co, Siena_co.
Perfect. And lastly, if anybody wants to support what you're doing, like how can we do that?
Yeah, absolutely. So we do have some of our first collection up on our website, the Classics collection, all black, my favorite. So there's still swimsuits there available. And then we're just gathering information for our second collection, the retro collection, kind of a fun 60s, 70s retro inspired collection. So interested in any swimsuits, to go to our website for that. And then just sharing too with anyone you think would be interested is always appreciated.
Thank you so much, Catherine. It's been so lovely talking with you. And I feel like so inspiring and so excited for what's to come with Sienna Company. I know this is not the last we're going to hear from you. And yes, I can't wait.
Yay. Thanks so much, Jasmine. It's been awesome. Keep up the good work.
See ya. Hey, friends, before we end today's episode, I want to give you a free resource that's going to help you create that winning product that we spoke about today. And that resource is our fit checklist. And this is going to help guide you as you do your fit session so that you can ensure that your product has the best fit. You can get this free guide at makegoodfashion.com/fitcheck or check the show notes for the link. I promise you this is going to come in handy, so make sure to get your copy today.